What's going on, everyone? It's Mike and Millsy back again for the Mike and Millsy show that's probably about 3 months out of date, man. We're gonna get into a lot of aggressive topics today. Obviously, the club is an absolute shower. I mean, it's fair to say, but to be honest, I'm just going to wind up Millsy and let him go tonight, to be honest, because I think he's ready for it. He's ready for it. How are you feeling? What's your feelings towards the board, mate?
We've just said, for a little behind the scenes off air, do you know when you have a day where it just nothing goes? I've had that day today. So Mike is absolutely ready to get me, and I'm going to give it, and I'm probably going to cry tomorrow and say, what the hell did I say? But I brought my good friend a nice cold bottle of beer, so let's talk. You say the board. I think we've always said on this show and other shows that we do, no Evertonian is wrong. You're entitled to your opinion. I think a lot of people are now going towards one way. And the one way is it's time for change.
It's actually untenable at this moment in time. They've completely, and I'm just going to say, they've fucked it. They've managed to get a situation. They've then made it worse. They've then tried to crawl out of it by blaming the fans, and then they've also made it worse again by everyone now knowing that they made it up. It is horrendous, really, because this is now a board of directors that is in charge of a football club where the fans, I would probably say 70 to 80% probably didn't want them in before this had happened. Yeah. And now you're talking probably 99% don't want them in now. They've managed, and Ped, do you know what? Ped put this excellently in his video that I saw. And he basically said that they've gaslighted us, and they have. They've literally defined every single Evertonian who goes to that game, who supports them well, who respects the club, who respects people, who watches peacefully, who's not aggressive. Every club has got the odd fan that's a bit of a knobhead. But you no one can moan at the protests. No one can moan at the fact that the fans greeted the coaching. There was no pyrotechnics apart from, I think, one person threw a flare when there was nobody on the pitch. They threw a flare when there was no one on the pitch, no players, no nothing. So it's not like it was the scenes of last season when there was flares everywhere and Richarlison could throw one. None of that. The Everton fans have been more than respectable for everyone connected, the media and the board. And it is absolute shambles what they did, to be honest. To be honest, I hate them. I hate them.
Mate, you know what? Without getting the channel into trouble and flat out accusing lies, let's just go with the narrative. The narrative that you know. But in fact, before we get to the narrative that it was, you know, not the whole truth, the statement on Saturday morning, for me, there's two things there. There's the timing of it. I think, without knowing again, I think that any threats to the board would be known 3 hours prior to our biggest game of the season to date. And I think the timing of releasing the statement was really, really poor. I do think there's a narrative behind that. I think it was maybe like, you know, here's what us good people are trying to put up with. And us good people, and what I will say is I know you know people at the club, and so do I, and the good people there who don't deserve what's happened. And by good people, I don't mean higher ups. I mean just people who work there. And there are good people there, but they don't deserve what's happening to the club right now. I also feel, personally, that statement was just beyond what it should have been. It should have just been, the Everton board will not be in attendance at today's game because of safety reasons, and we wish Frank Lampard and the team all the best today. We hope every Evertonian in that ground gives the team and a manager the support. It stopped at the first part and it continued into, this is a profoundly sad day for Evertonians. There was physical aggression to one of our members of the board, and it just opens up a circus where Monday evening I'm looking at Ian Wright having to apologize. Ian Wright, who's never played for the club, is having to apologise to Evertonians because of the message the football club put out on Saturday lunchtime. It's going way beyond chaos, way beyond it, Mike, way beyond it.
Do you know what? It's kind of like it's actually unbelievable. You know, when you sit there, and look, we already know we've smashed £600 million up the wall over 6.5 years, whatever it is. We know that we've done that. Every Evertonian knows the mistakes that have been made in recruitment, in management, in directors of football. I'm still on the fence about this particular director of football based on the fact that Mulpay and McNeil were bought in for £30 million. That's a different conversation. So, the whole history over the last 6 years, whatever it was since Moshiri come in, 6 years, it was February. What was it? February 16?
16,
yeah. So it speaks volumes, the fact that this football club has gone from, in my opinion, underachieving under Roberto Martinez with a team of Lukaku and all of those good players, Morales, etc. A team that 2 seasons before would finish 5th with a record points total for Everton in the Premier League, 72 points. To go from that, to go to where we are now, having invested so much money and being now hamstrung by financial fair play, having turned on the fans, there is now rumours about ownership issues with Usmanov and Moshiri, and whatever that turns out to be could be absolutely crippling for this football club. I mean, there is so many ramifications if they find out that Usmanov is some behind-the-scenes owner by some backdoor package, that he is more influential in Everton than we thought, based on the fact that they sanctioned Chelsea owner Abramovich to sell Chelsea. Yeah, we've completely ignored that. Just took the sponsorship away and the banners away. I mean, that really could mean that Everton are put into a situation, and certainly Moshiri is put into a situation where it's either you sell and you've got a very short period of time to do it, or you're going to be reduced points, you're going to be fined, you're going to have all sorts of issues. He might even have sanctions against himself because he's messed up so much of his ties with Usmanov. So that has opened a whole can of worms. You've got a stadium which every single Evertonian should be looking forward to getting into. Whether the team is performing on the pitch, it doesn't really matter. They shouldn't be 19th in the league. But if they were performing and they were 10th, 12th, 14th, but you had that stadium in the future to be excited about, you almost feel like the club's going in the right direction, even though it's gone backwards. Whereas actually, I now feel like it's a hamstring pulling us back, because if we get relegated and we've got the financial burden of that stadium, we're in oblivion. We're done. We're done. That's parachute payments last 3 years. The drop in income from TV revenue will kill us anyway. The wage bill's ridiculous. Barely any of the players have got relegation clauses in their contract. Yeah. Moshiri's asset that he was like, right, I'm going to build this stadium and then maybe sell it on. He's crippled. He's done. He's finished. So this football club as an entity has been potentially destroyed in the last 6.5 years. And what makes it even worse is the very simple fact that all of the board are blaming the fans. I mean, and the comments, the big one that hit me with Moshiri, and I up until he did this last week, I probably would have coped with Moshiri staying, but him sacking the board, i.e. Denise, Bill, and him just bringing in a proper board of football people. And I probably would have let him get away with that. But when he made that comment and that video and that TalkSport interview that he made, I sat there and I could not believe what I was listening to, because yes, he's put his money where his mouth is. But it's the equivalent, and I've said this numerous times, it's the equivalent of giving your 4-year-old your bank card into Smith's. It's everywhere. And he systematically has trusted people that don't have a clue, that have proven they don't have a clue over the 25 years before, made it worse by bringing in people onto the board that don't have a football board level idea. You know, bringing former players is great, but what benefit, what does that have? You've got Denise who, and I'm not going to dig her out too much, but you've got Denise who doesn't have experience in running a football club. She's always been involved in charities from what I can see. And she's clearly a very educated person, very clever. But that doesn't mean you know anything about running a football club. Before that, we had Robert Elston, who probably had more idea of running a football club. But let's be honest, nothing was ever very good under him.
What an absolute tool.
Yeah. So
trust me, and I hate to get you into trouble here, but I know from experience, what an absolute tool.
That's what I mean. So you've got a group of people that over the years have just actually got worse. You know, then you had that whole thing with, was it Usmanov's nephew, where he punched someone and got removed from the Everton board? Yeah. So this board, all they have done is create drama and issues for this fan base that unfortunately the media were turned against us. So we're not allowed to have that argument. We're not allowed to make that comment. I had friends of mine sending me messages saying, Mike, what are you moaning about your board? You've had £600 million of investment. You know, the fans have had a new stadium investment. What are you moaning about? This guy has put the money in. And on paper, yeah, he has. But the appointment he has made is literally ludicrous. And the fact that 12 months ago, he said clearly that he would communicate through Everton channels, he would have an open dialogue, he would be more involved, and he hasn't. He went straight through to TalkSport, straight through to Jim White, and let's be honest, Simon Jordan, after he'd heard the take of a few Evertonians, absolutely ripped him and some of the Evertonians to pieces. It was just the club. It's pathetic. The way the club is run is pathetic.
And this is what I mean by, I think we have to be careful by there's aspects of the club that, yes, it's ready for change. But again, going back to what I said, you know, a few moments ago, that there's people there that mean, you know, Mike, who do want change, and they're really great people. And do you think the Everton media team, who are a large amount of Evertonians, were ready for Farhad Moshiri to go on TalkSport and then have to manage our socials and manage the abuse that they get on their socials? Do you think our, you know, fan engagement team, who want the best for Everton Football Club, deserve the amount of, you know, engagement they're getting back? And again, understandably, Evertonians are absolutely angry. It goes to the very, very top. The boards are not doing a good job. They're absolutely not. But the board's also shrinking. You're talking about the people Usmanov that had on there. Keith Harris was a part of the board trying to get funding for the stadium. Where's he gone? Has he been replaced by someone? Because I don't know if he has. Grant Ingles, who apparently is a really, really great person coming from an accounting background, he now by default is getting banners against his name. Does he deserve that? I wouldn't like to say that he does or doesn't. I don't know. But the board needs help. They absolutely need help. Now, what's happened is that board has got so small. Now, the fans have recognised that this is an absolute... Well, the majority of fans now have recognised that this is an absolute joke. And it's gone from we need better or we deserve better to sack a lot of them. And it's all on one man's watch. And for me, I get the Kenwright thing. I get the Baxendale thing because he doesn't come from a background of running a football club. I get it. I get the Graham Sharp. How can you be a footballer and then go on to this position? I get it. But it's at one man for me. It's at one man. It's the owner. It's all on his watch. This club, on his watch, has qualified for Europe once. And since then, they've fluttered with what, let's say, bottom half mid-table twice. And we're into year 7, going into year 8. He has authorised and he's meddled He's absolutely meddled. There's enough credible people out there who feed the information in, and I get Kenwright medals, and I get backs. I get it all. I really, really do. But for me, it's on one man. And since he came in, it has just been a disaster. It is like you said, Mike, it's like giving your 4-year-old kid your debit card and then saying, it's not my fault he spent all that money. It is your fault. It 100% is your fault. You go back to summer 2021. Now, I don't want to talk too much about people behind a paywall because their information is behind a paywall. But we know, I said the Bobble give a really great podcast over on the Bullens where he mentions about Moshiri wanting Benitez, and it was against the guidance of nearly every single person who'd done the metrics and just looked around the fan base and said you can't do it, and he'd done it, and then I think that stopped us getting a couple of players in who may have improved us, may have not, but there was deals done under the director of football. The director of football was then surplus because of this guy coming in. It ends in chaos, which me and you said on the channel for over 6-7 months. It would end in chaos. It ended in chaos. You've now got an inexperienced manager in who's only in because the guy interviewing himself on Sky Sports News wasn't wanted. Let's not kid ourselves. The only reason Frank Lampard is the Everton manager is because we didn't want Vitor Pereira. Nobody said when Benitez went, or the week before Benitez went, get rid of Benitez because Frank Lampard's available. Nobody said that. And if they did, then God love you, because I never said it. And the stats and their history for the past 12 months don't support this current manager. So that's leaning toward that wasn't the right appointment as well. Whose watch is that on? Once again, one man, the owner. So the sack the board and the board can do better. Yeah, understanding. And yeah, to a really, really large part, I back it. And we need it. But Mike, for me, it's on one man only.
Yeah, no. The problem we're gonna have is there's almost no way of getting him out unless somebody overpays for Everton, because he won't dilute his he won't dilute how much money that he's put into the club for anyone. He he's not, whether he likes Everton or not, he won't just go, yeah, all right, I'll accept half the money that I've put in. He won't do it. Like no billionaire.
We've seen that with Kaminsky in the summer. We've seen that, so you're right. Yeah. We've seen the evidence. The Yanks came in with Kaminsky and he wouldn't do it. And
the fact that Kaminsky is now official, we kind of knew before, but it's now official that he's walked away, and he's fundamentally the impression, I have to be careful what I say, but the impression I get, and that's what I'm going to go with, the impression I get is he does not feel that the finances, the way it's been run, stack up. He doesn't even feel like they stack up with the football stadium, because
isn't that a shock? Isn't that a shock to the system?
And because and the evidence of that, everyone, while we were talking about football stadiums, is we believe that there was a fixed cost agreement with Lango Rourke for around 500 million. I actually think it was more like 520, but it was a bit over. It was 500. He comes out the other day and says it's 760 million. Now, I'm sorry, the land didn't cost that much. The transport links into Everton aren't, and actually the council, I believe, is paying for some of the transport support anyway. So you are looking at it being £260 million over anyway. And I'm just wondering whether he said that so that people go, oh, actually, look, this is how much this stadium is going to be worth. This is what it's going to bring in. I mean, being realistic, and people may not think this, but do you know any building in the world that will return £760 million? No stadium will. No stadium will. Spurs' stadium was £1 billion. Would it ever bring in £1 billion? Yeah, maybe if it's standing 100 years and it has X amount of concerts and whatever. But that's in London. I don't think Bramley Moore is going to have don't get me wrong, it's going to be amazing, you know, and it'll be beautiful, and you know, the capacity will be increased and all of that. But I don't think for a second people are going to buy that stadium going, oh yeah, that's a great investment. I think, yeah, you might get some sponsor money, i.e. the Qatar Airlines thing, or, you know, somebody else. I don't think that's the case. And what I really would love to know is, Moshiri goes out to Qatar, he speaks to investors, he speaks to people while he's there, he discusses the stadium, he may well have discussed the sale of the club. And then within 2 months, Liverpool's being bought by Qataris. It's just, honestly, I just do not get how that man bought a football club, thought he could run it, and we had all the warning signs. We had all the warning signs because we all looked at Arsenal and we all saw that Usmanov wasn't allowed to buy out Stan Kroenke. We all saw that Farhad Moshiri owned 10% but was never allowed a seat at the table, etc. Now we know why, because they didn't have a clue what they were doing.
It's been scattergun, and I'm talking the stadium as well, and the board. Yeah, there's been change at the board. There's been people who've came in and people who've left, and even that seems scattergun. There was no faith in Marcel Brands, rightly or wrongly. There was no faith in a couple of others who came in, rightly or wrongly. So even that's been scattergun, and maybe that's what he was referencing on his very, very silly TalkSport interview where he's saying that he did react. But even the stadium, the new stadium, Bramley Moore, there's at 1 minute you've got Joe Anderson, the ex Liverpool councillor who was, or the mayor, sorry, who was saying that we're putting funds in. Then the next minute that's gone. I'm with private. Then the next minute the owners at the World Cup with you know, people from Qatar, and there's rumours that's happening, and then the Kaminskis are involved, and it's just there's no stability running right through that football club. And there's people now, excuse me, who are teenagers, early 20s, even younger, who are now seeing Everton. How I seen, good God, I don't know, in the early 2000s, how I seen a Newcastle. When I used to look at Newcastle, I go, that's an absolute mess. They might bounce up and down, but they're a mess. And there's now a new generation of fans who think that's us, and they're right.
We are. It always makes me laugh when they come out and they say that Everton, that other clubs look at Everton. We've seen it time and time again. Ken Wright's mentioned it a few times. You know, when you look at Everton now, I think we're probably the worst run club in the country at the very least, because they just haven't got a clue. And I wanted to mention transfers to you because obviously we're all talking about these, and Everton Football Club are 19th. We've lost at home to, I think, the last 4 teams at the bottom of the league: Leicester, Wolves. Yeah. Leicester, Wolves. Obviously, we lost the weekend.
Bournemouth away.
That's it. So we've lost to all 4 teams at the bottom of the league. You could argue that the fixtures are worse this season than last season, having looked at the last 19 from this season and last season. So, and we're 4 points worse off. We've conceded, I think, 8 goals less, but we've scored 9 goals less than last season.
Yeah.
His team is clearly conceding goals and not scoring enough to cover themselves. If I was to give you a 0 to 10, what number are you when we're getting relegated?
Mate, it's high. It's really, really high. And I think it's probably fair to do this show again in 2 weeks' time. And let's just see if we've been able to do something in the transfer window. If we haven't, we're dead. And let's move away from the board. And yes, the bigger picture is that it all links back to that. But in this present moment, that football team, that 11 or that 12 or 13 who can be the 11, are in the bottom 3 teams in the league. They absolutely are. They may not be the worst team in the league. Now, Bournemouth may come to Goodison this season and we beat them. Fine. We may go to Wolves and beat them. We may go to Forest and beat them. there's 3 or 4 teams who are all around the same for me. To say Everton are not in the bottom 3 teams this season is someone who is either, without being too incredibly positive, or they are living behind a rock. Because this team, you know, when you close that transfer window in August, it was glaringly obvious that it lacked goals. It absolutely lacked goals. Now, what we hoped as a fan base was Anthony Gordon would kick on from. Let's make no mistake, he's got some stick, and rightly so. But at the end of last season, the fans were majoritarily saying we've got a good player there, and he may kick on. And we liked the Lampard relationship with Gordon. We enjoyed that. We thought that he may help Gordon. And we've gone into this season, and we've got Hollywood. And that's my opinion. We've got Hollywood. We've got someone who's turns up with, you know, he's got a nice new haircut, and he's wanting to go to Chelsea, and he's lost a lot of what he had last season in relation to fight and work rate. And all last season for me, when I looked at Anthony Gordon, was he wanted to get in that Everton team and help them. He wanted to get into that team. He was almost like, I'm going to make you play me. I'm going to make you play me because you need me. And now we're at a position where we can't play you because we actually don't need what you offer, because you're not offering much. So we've gone into the season thinking we had that. We've gone into the season hoping that Dominic Calvert-Lewin would somehow stay fit and would somehow press the button on the time machine and go back to when he was a player with 4 quality players around him and the whole system was developed to him. So we've kidded ourselves there. We've shut the window, and we've not been ready for the first half of the season. And the first half of the season ended in chaos. The second half of the season starts before the transfer window begins. So we're still with that. You then lose to Wolves. You go into early January and you lose to Brighton, which is no disgrace. They're a really good team. It's obvious that we're still not ready as a club to help the 11. You go into Southampton, and we are now 2 weeks into a window that we desperately, desperately need to help that 11. And it's obvious we have not got money. If anybody's watching this and thinks we do, please, my Twitter is @IanATP. I will have a conversation with you. This club has not got the money to help this team. And what I think, Mike, and this may, I don't know, you may disagree, you may agree, you may see a scenario or not scenario. I can see the scenario in the last week of the window, that big panic button of sell the goalkeeper to raise funds is pressed.
That's it. No, I completely agree. No, I think it'll happen. I would not surprise me if you see Jordan Pickford go to Spurs for 25 million, which is under his value, and that's Everton saying, we need the money, please just take him. Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if you see a fire sale of players like Michael Keane going for like £1 million. It wouldn't surprise me if you see players like... it wouldn't surprise me if you saw someone like Gordon going. It really would. It would not surprise me if it is literally a case of, if there's anyone that you want, put an offer in, take it. Because it was absolutely like unbelievable to sit here and think that Everton turned down 40 plus million for Anthony Gordon, then went and invested 25 to 35 million on McNeil and Mulpay, and the team got worse. And what was even more detrimental, in my opinion, is those 3 players, those 3 tangibles, the 2 good signings and the fantastic Anthony Gordon, none of them started on Saturday. None of them.
The manager didn't throw his 2 he didn't throw the 2 big signings for the summer to save his job. Now, I'm not saying that he definitely would have been sacked on Saturday evening, but I imagine there was a fear in his mind that, you know, this chaos, if I lose here today, he didn't even throw them on. And what I will say, and this is not personal, It's really not. Them two players are nowhere near good enough for any team trying to stay in the Premier League. No team. Do you know if Nottingham Forest bought those two players in July and we done a podcast, I'd say to you, Jesus Christ, Forest are gambling there, aren't they? We've done it. We've done it. We've been and bought Dwight McNeil, who had 1 assist in 38 games and no goals. Not 1 goal for a team who got relegated. Now, a team who gets relegated is crying out for goals. Win me a game. Win me a bloody game and be the man. He couldn't do it at Burnley. So we go and throw 20 million, and albeit I imagine it's 3 million up front, but we're going to end up paying that. You do. You end up paying that money, or you pay a large chunk of it. And then you look at Dominic Calvert-Lewin getting injured, and do you know what? The Morpay one I sort of get a little bit, because I think it was all eggs in the Breuer basket, and Chelsea liked him in pre-season and then said he's part of us. And I imagine the structure of the deal with Brighton benefited us, and on paper you'll get 7 goals. By God, how did that striker ever score 2 goals? Never mind 7. Like I hear the argument we don't play to his strengths, mate. I watched him.
I don't know what his strength is.
I watched him at home to Brighton control a goal kick with his chest and give it back to the goalkeeper.
Go back to him. Go back to people.
Back to the goalkeeper by trying to control it. I watched his first moment in an Everton shirt miss a 5 yards out chance in a Merseyside derby when the fucking City are like just burst the net. There's not a good striker there. There's not a good winger there, and for us to lose Richarlison, who we were always going to lose, and look, let's make no mistake about it, the timing of that deal, which was the last day when the accounts could be filed, and it was the one player who could fetch them the most money. I don't think Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Jordan Pickford would have fetched what Richarlison fetched, so we knew it was happening. To go and replace him with fucking Morpay and McNeil it's just unbelievably bad management.
It's criminal. It's criminal. So we've been linked with players, as you know. We've been linked with Zapata. We've been linked with Moussa Dembele. We've been linked with Danjuma, which has got legs in it.
Yeah.
The worst thing is the fact that we knew that Danjuma had been offered some form of deal the weekend. I think that's happening because Bournemouth have now moved on and gone after the Lorient winger instead.
Uatara.
Who we were linked with as well. So I think Danjuma happens, personally. I think he probably comes in. I think it will be a loan with I think it would be an obligation to buy if we stay up.
Yeah.
With some form of structured deal behind the scenes that will value about 45 million. He is a fantastic footballer. He is a fantastic footballer. There's no getting around that. I would be very happy with his signing. But I've mentioned a few times now that Everton need a player that can put the ball in the final third and keep it there. A player that, this sounds silly, but everything that Everton do is straight up and straight back. There's no keeping it for a sustained amount of pressure. There's no keeping the ball on the edge of the box for more than a minute or two. A team that has got players who can move the ball quickly, move it nicely, get it into a central man that can pick a pass, sort of a number 10, but with a little bit more maybe aggression, a bit more tackling ability, etc. I don't understand why Everton aren't going for a type of player like that on loan, someone like that. And I also don't understand why they haven't binned off Vinagre.
The Vinagre one is really, really strange, because you're looking at a left back that we've got now, and Mikalenko, who is struggling. And I feel for Mikalenko. I really do feel for him. Now he's not playing well, but I look at his character and I see a young lad who cares. I seen it last season that he cares, and it must be a really, really tough time for him. So I feel for him, but it's also the right time now to say to him, thank you so much for this year that you've given us in these circumstances. We're going to go with someone else to maybe give us the rest of the season. And Vinagre, I watched at Fleetwood, and he had an absolute nightmare. I remember seeing tweets, albeit tweets don't mean much really, but I seen tweets from Wolves fans when we signed him going, how's he back in England? He's not suited to England. He's lightweight and he doesn't do X, Y, and Z. So look, you're right in what you're saying, that there's a lot of little pockets there. It goes back for me, Mike, is we've sold, maybe not sold, for whatever reason, players have left our team who had that eye to get Everton up the pitch, whether that be the left back, who I don't think was the best left back in the world, but good God, he'd create a goal for you. If he was in your team, there was a good chance that he was at least create something for you. Yeah. There was a number 7 who would at times put the city on his back and say, it's on me and I care for you. You had someone who had the paintbrush out, albeit on £250,000 a week, but he was painting pictures on the ground when he was fit. You had a number 10 in Gylfi Sigurdsson who put numbers on the board, and Seamus Coleman has aged since then. And if you look at that, if you look at Coleman not being replaced, Dean's attacking outlet not being replaced, we've never replaced Richarlison, James Rodriguez, or Gylfi Sigurdsson. It's only going to end up one way. You haven't replaced players who put numbers on the board. And numbers on the board may not mean they're not that good to win you a trophy. And they're not that good to get you in Europe. But they're good enough to keep you away from where we are now. And what's happened is when they've left the football club, they've been replaced with players who are not even close to their level. Not even close. No. Look at Alex Iwobi this season. So he's got 1 goal. Yes, he's got 5 assists. And yes, maybe if better players are in front of him, it might be more. But if you're an attacking midfielder and you've got 1 goal this season, then give me the fella before you, because he was doing more. The wingers, again, you're just looking, you're not producing anything. Damari Gray, for me, arguably now, is probably our best player, and he's not really that good. He's not really that good. And all of a sudden, he's like, I'm thinking it's on him and Onana. If we're going to stay up with this team, they're the 2 players for me who will have to step up. And it's unfair on the latter. And the first one really isn't that good. So it's just been, it's been coming. It's been coming and coming and coming. And you can't keep replacing these players who put numbers on the boards with players who don't. And that's where we are.
In terms of players that Everton have been linked with, I mean, we've also been linked to players like Mikel Antonio, Danny Ings, players that are past their prime, probably on fairly high wages. Would you go and take a gamble on a Danny Ings that you know does score goals with chances, but he's going to cost you probably 10 million quid in a transfer fee, if Everton can find that, by the way, and probably 100 grand a week in wages? Do you do that?
I think there's 2 ways of looking at it. I think you look at the fact that you now have to gamble. I think that Southampton game has brought everything is now you have to gamble.
Yeah.
And the second part of that answer is Danny Ings the gamble. If you're going to spend, I imagine, no matter how you structure it, it's double figures in the millions to buy him. Yeah. No matter how you structure it, you're going to pay him a lot of money. Can our recruitment team not be better than Danny Ings? Should they not be better than Danny Ings? Should we have not got into January the 1st with 4 names and Danny Ings is 5th? Because the 4 above him, all the metrics and all the scouting in the past 3 or 4 months has gone into these players. For me, yes, that we should have had that. Now, maybe Uatara and maybe a Dembele and a Danjuma, maybe that's where we are. Maybe I'm misreading the whole situation and we're trying to structure deals for a Danjuma. We may be trying to get to an Uatara. We maybe go to a Dembele. Danny Ings, to me, is just a gamble. His knee's blown up 2 or 3 times and he's on big money and he's the wrong side of the 3. the threes in front of his age, and I don't know. I really don't know.
Do you not think Dembele and Danjuma's a gamble because of the lack of Premier League experience as well? But my point is, there's nobody in the Premier League who you could hang your hat on and say, do you know what, Everton can go and sign him. I mean, the big name for me, and I have said this a few times, is I truly believe that last summer, when Fulham had just been promoted, Everton should have gone and spent that £30 million on McNeil and whatever his name, Milpo, and should have offered it to Fulham for Mitrovic. I've said it time and time again, because all you need to do with Mitrovic is put the ball in the box. And I'm not going to say he's going to score every time, but he will score you goals. I would have moved heaven and earth for Everton to go and sign him. I really would have. I would have literally given Damari Gray and Anthony Gordon the instructions. You get the ball. You don't worry about your goal stats this season. You just put it in the box. Because the best winger we've got to simply beat a person and put the ball in the box, he's 32 years old, Andros Townsend, and he's been injured. And people will probably come and have a go at me for that. But he doesn't drop the ball on the shoulder. He just puts the ball in the box. He's not pretty. He's not fantastic. He just does the basics fairly well. That's exactly what Everton need. The ball to be consistently in the opposition half, opposition box, creating chances. Nobody follows up. Nobody wins a header. I haven't seen Mulpay either outrun someone or control a ball. So I don't know what sort of striker he is, because he can't hold the ball on the chest and he can't run in behind. So how's that a striker? You've got an attacking line of players like Iwobi. You've already alluded to it, and he's actually had a good season this season, you'd argue. Then you've got Damari Gray, who before the Southampton game, I was so impressed with his attitude in the last 2 or 3 games. I felt like he really was prepared to carry this team.
Yeah.
At Southampton, he didn't turn up. When we needed him most, probably, he didn't turn up. He doesn't even start Gordon, who's a local lad, Evertonian, etc. All of that comes through the academy. Doesn't even trust him to start him. Doesn't trust him to start any of his 2 signings. Then you go into midfield, you've got Onana, who, to be fair to him, took the game by the absolute scruff of the neck. And unfortunately, he just can't do the job of 11 players. You've got a goalkeeper who, in my opinion, makes a fundamental mistake in the second goal. I don't understand why he doesn't dive for it. I know there was Mikalenko in front of him, but I don't get it, because it was definitely a savable free kick. You've got a back four. There, Tarkowski and Cody are looking weaker, and but you know there is no doubt that they are good footballers, but they are seeming to be now brought down by the rest of the team. Tarkowski has concerned me in his movement, and certainly in his defensive marking. He really concerns me how he leaves gaps. There's no doubt he's a good defender. I'm not digging him out, but it's almost like this team defensively is getting worse, because the one credit I give Frank Lampard before the World Cup and before the Bournemouth games was we were only conceding like a goal. We were always in the game. But we're no longer always in the game now. When Southampton scored and made it 1-1, there was only one winner, apart from maybe one chance that Everton had where Calvert-Lewin looped it and it hit the bar. Southampton had time, space, but it was almost like they were the home team. They had all the time in the world to pick passes. We saw it against Wolves. Everton go on the offensive, try and attack, get done on the counter, lose. Against Man City, when that doesn't happen, we managed to get a point. And against Manchester United, when it doesn't happen, you could argue we almost got a replay. So the way that Frank Lampard is setting up this team against the teams that are in around us, it's not working. It's not working. And then the one thing he did do, which I think he got, I'd argue he probably should have got some credit for, is he clearly listened, because a lot of fans said, look, the 4-4-2 or the 4-2-3-1 isn't working. Let's go with this 5 that has worked against Man City, worked against Manchester United. But then he changed it halfway through the second half, and we could see the second goal. So
he's been like that. He's been like that. Let's go back to. Look, I don't think that this Everton team, and again, I could be the minority. I don't think it should have one set way of playing. I think there should be when we play teams of the ilk of United and City, and we're going to Anfield soon, and we've got Arsenal coming all day. They play, and I'd put Brighton in there. I would say when Brighton comes as a footballing team, I'd be more than happy to try and get a point. There's also got to be times that you pick your moments and say, we're going to go and try and win this game. And it happened last season. If you recall, when we dug ourselves out and we played the system with it, 5 at the back or the 3-4-3, we played it at home to Chelsea, played it away to Leicester, and we clawed ourselves out. We then played it away to relegated Watford, when that was the team to go and get 3 points on a Wednesday night and stay up. We then played it at home to Brentford, when that should have been the home game where we said, we've still got two games left. Let's try and win this game. But he was stuck on something that was seemingly working. Now, what he's done on Saturday is he stuck with something that was seemingly working, despite getting beat by Manchester United. Let's not forget that. Forget the performance. We got beat by Manchester United still, and he's stuck with it. He's got a history of sticking with something that when he throws at the wall and it works, he hasn't, for me, as the coach or the manager, got the ability to read between the lines and go for it. Look at different games at different stages of the season and say that game and this stage of the season calls for this. He relies on what has worked prior. And I know we'll probably get there now with the manager, but for me, that will be his downfall. There will be no more pay with signs above me. There will be no this was chaos. He's had enough chances for me, the manager, to make things work. And the Southampton game, I'm sad to say because I'm a fan, but the Southampton game for me was all on the manager.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I've said it numerous times. As an individual, as a person, I like Frank. I like Frank. I have no doubt that he gets the fan base. I've got no doubt that he believes the passion in Everton, and I believe that he's someone that looks at Everton as a former big club and respects that. Because there is a lot of people now that don't see Everton like that anymore, but I still believe that he does. I would have sacked him after the Bournemouth game, because I would have sacked him after the Bournemouth game, knowing that we've got a whole World Cup. Somebody's got time to come in, pick what they're going to do in January. Look at the players that were there from Everton. There wasn't loads of Everton players in that England and whatever other national teams. So there was the ability to look and see what they've got. Try and work out if they could get some deals done early, i.e. we're going to move out Michael Keane. He's going to go on loan to somewhere that will free up the wages so we can bring someone in. Whatever it worked out to, I would have done it. I absolutely would have done it. And, people can criticise me or say what they like, but I really do believe now the only thing that may keep Everton up is not the squad. I don't even think it's the fans. I think this is a season too far for us. I really do. And I think it's the potential of a new manager bounce, that he manages to get something out of some players where we pick up these random lucky results. Because I can't see us beating anyone, if I'm being honest. I really can't. I can't see us beating anyone.
You need 7 or 8 wins now, don't you?
That's right. I can't see us beating anyone, and we need 7 wins. We need 7 or 8 wins. I went through the league with my friend the other day, and he was generous, and he'd give us 34 points, and he was generous. I give us 30. So I'm convinced we're going down, but we're leaving it far too late to bring in this manager, to have that this new manager bout, this new manager players, this opportunity that may be there to get something out of someone, because we are literally just walking through the transfer window, keeping the faith with a manager that is out of his depth. It's not that he's not a nice person. He's not a manager that I hate. It's not like he's left it's a Koeman for me.
Yeah.
I don't hate him. I just wish he would leave or he would be sacked so we can go and get a manager that he can deal with this situation. People have criticised me. I've mentioned 3 names and I'll say them again. You may disagree with one of them. Most of the fan base disagrees with one of them because He's currently at a club that's in the same position as us. But honestly, I think I would take Sean Dyche as my number one option. I would beg Sam Allardyce, and I'd even consider David Moyes. And that is how lost I am with the idea of us staying in the Premier League, because I'm now thinking of a manager that I'm hoping can bring us back up. I'm not looking at staying in the Premier League because I'm already convinced we're gone.
So which of the three would you say has the best chance of keeping us up?
Allardyce.
Mm.
And the best manager to bring us back up is Sean Dyche.
Mm. And it's funny because I don't disagree, but I can see it being David Moyes. I can just see a scenario of he comes back and he says the right things and I know what this means and he tries to get us out of it. I can just see that for some reason.
But and this is where people will slag me off for this, and I want to put a caveat around this answer. I'm not against David Moyes coming back, and I never have been. And the reason for that is, and this is no disrespect to anyone that's older than me either, by the way, but all of the best times I have personally seen at Everton have been under David Moyes. I haven't seen us winning trophies. I don't remember the 1995 FA Cup final. I was 3. I remember us almost winning in a couple of semi-finals. I remember us scoring the fastest goal in FA Cup history with a lovely volley from Louis Saha. But I don't remember winning trophies. I don't remember these older, experienced managers. So my almost go-to person for my good times, weirdly, because I agree, the football was turgid. There was moments where it was all stale. It was David Moyes. However, the counter to that argument, rightly so, is he's got a team that he was able to spend £120 million in the summer, and they're currently sitting on the same level of points with us in 18th. So are you going to get that? Is he too stale now? Is he past it? It sounds awful, but no, I don't know the answer. Whereas before, I've been able to give the people the fantastic people that watch my channel and watch all of the guests and the co-hosts that come onto my channel, I've always been able to give you my opinion, and as a result, my direction, my idea. I haven't got a clue. I'm lost. I don't know who's the back, what to support, what signings are the best. I don't know.
Do you trust the people in charge to make the right calls? Should it come?
No.
Should someone say, okay, Frank moves on for whatever reason, do you trust them to make the right decision? And if Frank doesn't want to walk, do you trust the board to push him and sack him when it should happen?
Frank will get sacked. I'd put my house on this, right? Frank will not get sacked until the last 5 days of this transfer window, because it will allow a new manager to have an idea and to bring some players in that he thinks. And 5 days isn't enough, by the way. It's nowhere near enough, because we brought Frank Lampard in and we did exactly the same, and we go and sign Dele Alli and.
He was deadline day. The manager was deadline day.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was the last deadline day this January. It would not surprise me, Melzer. And loads of people will give me stick for Moyes, and loads of people will probably give me stick for Allardyce, and I understand. I get it. Look, I sit here listening to myself, thinking, God, Mike, are you that desperate? But the answer is yes. I do remember David Moyes coming in. I think I was 10 when Walter Smith got sacked. I remember David Moyes coming in from Preston, and I remember his job was to keep us in the Premier League, and he did it. I remember that. I remember Unsworth. I think, did he score a free kick in the last game? It weren't the last game of the season. We stayed up the game.
It was Moyes' first game against Fulham. He scored the first goal. I know where you're going with that. Yeah.
So I remember that. So I'm relating memories. I remember sitting in the car after we lost 4-1 to Southampton, and we were 1-1 at half time in a game that we were getting battered in. And I remember crying, begging for Ronald Koeman to be sacked. So I remember begging for it, and I remember saying, "Please just go and get Sam Allardyce." We then have Unsworth for 7 weeks or whatever it was, and it was as bad. And then we bring in Sam Allardyce, and he manages. I mean, he got a lot of stick, but he manages to get a team that could easily have gone down to finish eighth. And then you've got Sean Dyche, who, if 12 months ago, I'd have turned my nose up at him in a heartbeat. No, it's not the football I want to see at Goodison Park. That's not the style of player I want. Mate, honestly, I'm so far down that stream with no paddle in my canoe. I don't know who to bring in anymore. And
that style of football is the only way we stay up. That style of football is the only way we stay up now. We don't stay up pretty football. We have to be ugly.
That's what I mean. And I'm not bothered about that. Honestly, I'm not bothered about it. Just keep me in the Premier League.
Yeah.
2 years ago or 3 years ago, there was very much the Arteta or Ancelotti, and everyone, all of us, me included, I think you were probably saying that, we were screaming for Ancelotti. We were like, oh my God. Arsenal are going this way, Everton are going this way. The ambition's there. And literally 2.5 years later, I am sitting here begging a board to bring in a manager I don't really want, desperate to stay in the Premier League. And it's heartbreaking, Millsy. It's killing me.
It's and it sounds crazy, but I took my little boy to the Brighton game, and I shouldn't have, because of where I sit and the stuff that he hears. But that's neither here nor there. But point I'm trying to make is, I'm about to break my 4-year-old by making him support Everton, and it's like he went home from that game, and it was, God love him. He celebrated Damari Gray scoring a penalty at the end, and he seen Everton score, but then he heard the not so favourable reaction to it, and that's where we are as a club now, where I'm taking my 4-year-old boy to a game, and I would never, ever, ever, and I didn't at the time, and I wouldn't on this podcast, criticise the language or the feeling or the emotion in the ground. It's on me to take my 4-year-old. It's not on anybody else. But that ground is just on a knife edge now. This fan base is on a knife edge, and I don't want to talk for other fans, but I felt in the ground on Saturday that the songs were forced. I felt the coach greeting was forced. I felt last season there was more emotion behind it. I feel there's a bit of an acceptance of where we're going, unfortunately. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's worse? And I've said this for years. I've said this for years. And I remember some of the stick I've had over the years for saying it. And it was always, I always felt it was because I'm not a Scouser. I've had this debate with you. It's like this complex I've got about being a fan channel that I'm not a Scouser. I'm not accepted the same way. And blah, 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 blah. I'm not bothered whether I am or not.
Although every home game you're signing programs and taking selfies and there's a meet and greet.
Yeah. Throwing money everywhere. Yeah, that's it. All this massive YouTube. I've said for years that if Everton continue the way they're going to go, they're going to kill the next generation of fan. And actually, as a result of that, they'll kill the generation after, because there's so much money being pumped into the game now, and social media the way it is, and younger people are watching more on things like TikTok and Instagram and all of these other reels and whatever. You're going to see more fans from neutral places choosing to support teams like, and this isn't a dig at any of their teams either, by the way, but you're going to see people want to support Newcastle because they'll be like, they're still an underdog, but they're an exciting underdog. You're going to see them wanting to support Brighton over Everton. When you look at the history of the club, 9 top flight titles, 5 FA Cups, 18, I think it's semi-finals in the FA Cup as well, Cup Winners' Cups, European Cup Winners' Cup. This club is never going to put in the neutral fan anymore. The random person, the You see it on Twitter sometimes where people come in and they say, "Well, I'm from America. Who should I support?" And loads of people put support Everton for this or support whoever for this. We're not even going to be in the debate because we're becoming irrelevant. This football team has got this fantastic stadium and some positives, but I can't see through the cloud, mate. I can't see through the cloud, and I keep alluding to similarities, and I did do this last season. I did it a few seasons before, and I said the similarities between us and Aston Villa. It is because Aston Villa are perceived to be a big club, just like Everton. Good history, won a European Cup, won top flight titles, etc. Big club, heritage, well known. But this football team, fundamentally are just like them. They stay up on the last couple of games this season. Villa went down the season after.
Yeah.
They then get reinvestment in the Championship after almost going into administration. Come back up by the scruff of their neck, then stay up by the scruff of their neck. Now they look a different team with an identity, a purpose, under a manager that's won European trophies. They look like a team that are prepared to invest, probably unwisely, just like us. I mean, they bought Luka Dean for 25 million, and today their pants are still down. But this football team, I don't have the same hope that if we go down, we turn it into this Phoenix story, like Aston Villa have, who could finish in the top 10 this season. We are a team that if we go down, we're staying down. And that's not because of
we're in trouble. We're in massive trouble. So look at the finances dictate that you lose 90 million, I think 9-0 from the bat. Now, we are not a club who can afford to lose that amount of money because we're flying so close that the kite is so close to the moon as it is, it's about to burst. So what will happen, excuse me, Mike, is there will be a fire sale, and the fire sale will be as drastic as take him with an obligation. Take him with an obligation because we cannot afford to keep him. So the three players who will leave in the summer anyway will be Decore, Mina, and Davies. They're gone. You will then have to say, who wants the right back? Who wants the keeper? The centre-half who's played well goes back to a Premier League club because he's only on loan. The other one, who's on 100 grand a week because he's on a free transfer, has to go back up to someone who's just been promoted. You then sell Ghana guy, Onana goes, Iwobi probably goes, Dominic Calvert-Lewin goes, and you are stripped straight down to the players that you couldn't even play to fight a relegation battle. Never mind, get you back up. And what will happen? What happens there with those type of deals where the obligations and the money that doesn't come in straight away, despite the parachute payment, is you can't rebuild that team in year one. And you may still have this board who, for whatever reason, are not attending games or not engaged or are waiting for the stadium to be built. And then the domino effect keeps coming and coming and coming. The director of football may then walk away or be sacked because he's perceived to have let the team down. The manager gets sacked. You press reset on the entire structure. Once again, all the internal appointments that have been made in the past 12 months, they're up in the air. They get replaced. The stadium gets affected. And then the biggest thing for me is then the fan base or some part of the fan base become that disengaged that you just give up. It's not worth it. And there's fans out there who rightly or wrongly, they just want to go to the game on a Saturday and enjoy themselves. They want to take their boy or their girl, and they don't want to get involved in the politics. But it becomes that much of a horrible place to go to that you stop going. You're taking your kids home. They're asking why I haven't get beat every week. Mate, the implications of going down are just so scary. And what you said there in relation to Villa, now I don't think Villa had the structure to bounce back. I think it took a while, but there's teams who do. If Watford go down, they'll bounce up. If West Brom go down, they bounce up. If Newcastle goes down, they bounce up because they're sort of prepared for it. Mate, we're nowhere near prepared for it. If we go down, mate, it will be catastrophic. We've got 2 weeks. That's all we've got. If anyone is listening or watching from the club, you've got 2 weeks. If you go into February with the window closed, with this squad of players, with this manager, and with this chaos, this almost battle between board and supporters, we're done. You've got 2 weeks. You've got 2 weeks.
I'm going to leave it there on that very poignant note, and then I'm going to clip that and I'm going to send it to you. Millsy, as always, it's been depressing, so thank you ever so much.
Therapy,
guys, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button if you're still there. Make sure you go and check out Across the Park podcast. Their match reaction was fantastic this weekend, so go and watch it. Millsy was very impassioned play, was absolutely fantastic. So I think I'm going to sign him up to do some spokesman work for the channel.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, guys, look, I'm leaving it there. Have a good one. Keep smiling, and I'll see you soon.